Hello, good evening, and a very warm welcome to another of our series of Build Back Better for Carers live streams. My name's James, and I am CEO of Mobilise. We are the tech startup by carers and for carers. And we are working with local authorities and carer centres around the country to reach out to the 13.6 million unpaid carers in the UK, providing preventative support at an early stage through online channels. Thank you very much for joining us today, because we're having a series of conversations, taking the lessons that we've learned from the really challenging 12 months that have just passed in the coronavirus lockdown, and seeing what we can learn to build back better for carers, to build a better future for carers as well. Now, I'm really excited to be introducing Katy Styles today. Katy is a campaigner and a charity leader and a carer herself. And I think what Katy brings to this conversation is not only an enormous amount of personal experience herself, but also a real sense of how to campaign and how to get things done. And when I bring Katy in, don't be confused by the smile and the good sense of humor, and don't mistake that to be anything other than a really powerful campaign for change underneath. And I'm really delighted that Katy's able to be with us. So Katy, I'm going to bring you in now. Hello and welcome. And how are you doing this evening, Katy?
Oh, this is fantastic. It is lovely to see you, James, and say hello to the audience. That's really exciting. So yeah, no, thank you. I'm doing fine. This evening.
Great. Well, as I say, it's really good to have you with us, and thank you for offering to share your thoughts on how we can build back better for carers. Can I also welcome everybody who's joining us from wherever you are? Please do get involved in the conversation. We've already had some comments coming in. So hello, Jackie. Hello, Matthew. Great to have you with us. As we go through, please do share your comments, questions, and really importantly, your experience. So some of the issues that we're talking about today, how they affected you. Katy, I've given you a little bit of an introduction, but I want to ask you, first of all, who is Katy Styles? What's your experience of the whole question about unpaid carers?
So I am an unpaid carer to my husband, Mark, who has a form of motor neuron disease called Kennedy's disease, which is slowly progressive. And I became his unpaid carer as he became poorlier. And actually, in a meeting, I discovered that I was a carer. I had thought that I was his wife up until that point. So that was really, really a sort of one of those water cooler moments that, you never forget. I'm also caring for my mum as well. She doesn't live with us. She's elderly and had a series of little mini strokes and needs more support, especially over lockdown. So it's been quite tricky to navigate both of those things. And then a little while back, only really recently, I realised that I'd probably been a young carer as well to my father from the age of about 5. But because that was normal to me, and it's only through having conversations with other carers recently, I realised that, yeah, I have probably been caring ever since I was 5, with a short break when I went to university and then back to it when I came home. So, yeah.
I think so many people will resonate with your story, Katy, of not necessarily understanding fully the caring role and all that has built up over a period of time, sometimes quite slowly, until you're kind of right in the thick of it. And I think your experience is one that a lot of people will identify with. Now, recently, I say recently, it's been going for a little while now, you've launched the WeCare campaign. And that's really been a kind of a focus for you to be talking about essentially exactly the issue we're talking about today, which is how can we build back better for carers? What's happened with that campaign? Where did it come from originally?
So it originally started because I got involved with the National Carer Strategy back in 2016. And I, like many other carers, I think there were 6,000 of us, wrote into government to say, this is what we need from a carer's strategy, because it needed updating. And we all had really good ideas. And then nothing happened with it, and nothing happened with it, and nothing happened with it. And I got incensed and I got angry, and I spoke to somebody in Parliament and I said, what do I do? And I thought, well, I'll start a petition. And I ran a petition on the government's website, which, is online. So, that gives you digital skills that I didn't have before. And it became clear whilst running that carers actually wanted to campaign, and they needed help to campaign, and they needed tools. And WeCare was born in 2018 from that experience.
And of course, it's grown enormously since then. And I, like so many of the things in I call it a sector. I'm not sure that that's the right word at all. But those of us who are talking about carers and carer support, there's so much that has come in the last year or so that really feels like it's an important time. And I think WeCare has been part of that. I really feel like the planets have aligned, and this is the key moment. Debbie's just asking there, did you get any support as a young carer? So you didn't identify yourself as a young carer at the time, but do you think anybody else around you did identify that role?
No, I don't think they did. So I didn't understand that, actually, because my father was a chronic asthmatic, which doesn't sound too bad, but actually it was sort of life-threatening all the time. And he was on a farm. And so we had, my brother and I, so my brother would have been 3 at the time, we followed him around everywhere to make sure that he was all right. And when he wasn't, one of us would run back to the farmhouse to make sure that we got an adult. So, and that just perpetuated. So no, I didn't think that was not normal, because that was my dad and looking after him, and that's what we did. So
and it's one of those things that we're picking up is so important in the journey of being a carer, is that moment of identification. And sometimes it's you, sometimes it's the circumstances, sometimes it's somebody else, could often be the GP, tapping you on the shoulder and say, now look here, you're doing a lot here, you've got responsibilities that not everybody has, and there's a word for that, and it's called carer. Can you say a little bit, Katy, about how you feel about the word carer, because it's such a complex thing for us always to absorb, isn't it?
I have to say, so sitting in that meeting and being told I was a carer, I sort of riled against it a bit, because I thought, no, I'm Mark's wife, I don't want to be a carer. And it wasn't until, and I have to say, it was the director of adult social services that I was sort of asking with my husband for better support for people with MND across our county, which we got. But he sort of said, you are a carer, Katy, and if you say you're a carer, you can have a carer's assessment, and you can get carer support, and you can be so I quickly learned that was really helpful. And whilst I didn't like the term at the time, I've embraced it. And I think by embracing it, that opens up a whole other, you unlock a door if you embrace it. But we were just talking about this point before, weren't we? About the fact that carers now does not mean what it meant pre-lockdown. So for a campaign that deals with carers, I blame the Clap for Carers totally for hijacking our name, because we have Carers Week and Carers Rights Day, and that is about unpaid carers and family carers. It's not about paid care workers or social care workers or people in healthcare that, are caring in their roles, but they are not carers. So I feel we have set back the movement years, because we are now, as I say, trying to get people vaccinated as unpaid carers and then being told that they need a letter because they, to show their employment because they're a carer, just shows you the extent that the public have picked up on this and organisations. And so it's really worrying. And I am really, thinking, well, how do we claim the name back? How do we claim it back?
And there's, just for the sake of clarity, given that we are broadcasting to an audience, we should make clear that those who are expecting a letter to prove employment they are making a misunderstanding there, and that you don't need documentation to prove that you're a carer, be it to be eligible for support from your carer centre or to access the vaccine, whatever it might be. Actually, being a carer is in itself demonstrative, and of course we found that this was a big issue. I remember just under a year ago, a big question that we had at the beginning of lockdown was, how we get to supermarkets and make sure that we can demonstrate a caring role. And I don't know about you, Katy. I felt a lot of that was, partly it was to help supermarket staff, to have a badge to wave in the way, but actually a large part of it was about self-confidence. So a carer can, if they have something in their pocket that says, I am a carer, this is legit, that actually gives them the self-confidence to say, yeah, actually there is a reason why I should be going in the front of the queue here. And it's really important. I think you're getting some strong support from Debbie there in Surrey. So Katy, sorry, I'm rabbiting on here. There's loads of stuff, and I think you've identified one good example. There's loads that we can be learning from our experience of the last 12 months. What are the key lessons that you want to take away that we've learned about supporting carers and carers' needs and what it is to be a carer over the last 12 months that you think can help inform the future?
Well, I think just how powerful digital is. I know there's conversations about that it excludes certain people, but we have to work harder to make sure that they're not excluded. The fact that we can do this now, the fact that I've been able to run an online campaign very successfully digitally, has helped. The fact that, there are some positives as well as all of the negatives, but digital is incredibly powerful. And the fact that, we all carry around phones all the time and can be in touch with people and support and help and apps and everything. I think that's just so, it is powerful, isn't it? The fact that I can tweet a minister, as I'm sitting here, or whatever it is, to explain about unpaid carers. It is just phenomenal.
And so, Katy, I agree. I think there's a massive opportunity. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing through Mobilise if I didn't think that digital opportunities have a really powerful role. But a lot of some people would say, steady on, Katy. Not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody wants to be logging on with all of the broadband and all of that sort of thing. So what's your response to that?
It's funny. I mean, one of the very first events that I did as WeCare was locally, and we managed to send a text message out via GP surgeries, actually, at the time, to invite carers to come. And the number of telephone calls that I got from people that you wouldn't expect to necessarily be digitally enhanced taught me a lesson that it wasn't necessarily that they would be using WhatsApp or that they would, it was good old fashioned sending me a text or actually picking up the phone and giving me a call to the number that we had provided. So, you just have to adapt it to your audience, I think, and be flexible. And if that's the way they want to communicate with you, then you do that. And I think that's how WeCare has built, because, if you DM me, I'll DM you back. If you text me, I'll do back. If you send me a WhatsApp message, I'll send you a GIF, and that if you send me an email, I'll respond that way. And I think there's something there, isn't there? And also, I mean, we sent out, and you can't do that now, but we sent out, we had posters around the town, and then people came up to us, and to the library, good old fashioned libraries and things like that, and museums to find us. So
there's something really important. I always think, so much of the technology that we use is designed for investment bankers, right? And shock horror, most carers aren't investment bankers. That doesn't mean that we don't want to be using technology one way or another, but it might be that the way we use it is different. And I know through Mobilise, we found, particularly when you might not have 5G signal everywhere. Yeah. Well, let's think about how we can design a way to talk to each other that doesn't involve super amounts of data all the time, but is still really accessible, is straightforward to use. It's the old mum test, isn't it? If you could persuade your mother to use it, then it's probably going to be a good thing.
And I've learned that also, obviously not everybody has a printer. So if you're going to provide a template letter or something like that, it's got to be emailable, or you put your money where your mouth is, and you say, can I help you by sending you a physical copy, and you post it out to them. It's not difficult. I mean, there's a cost there, but that's what WeCare has done. We've sent out kits, as for craftivism, which is craft and activism, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But we've done that, and we post out things. So again, we're adapting and fitting to how you want to get involved with us. That's powerful, and that makes your community. I think if you do that, and I know you do that with Mobilise. So it's
absolutely
the same sort of thing, isn't it?
And Jackie Darlington there saying pandemic has made us very flexible. Jackie, do send us through the link to those yoga classes that you're recommending for us. But you probably mean in a more esoteric sense. We're responding. And actually, Katy, I think one of the things that you taught me right at the beginning of the pandemic is that in many ways this is the time for carers, because carers know what lockdown feels like, not being able to leave the house as and when you like to. Carers know what it's like when you might get a curveball at any moment that completely changes a lot of the practical things about life. And I wonder, what are the lessons that you want to be drawing on from the pandemic about carers' role in society and the visibility of what it is to be a carer?
I think if we can't persuade the public how valuable we have been now, then we are never going to be able to do it. So there's part of me that thinks about suffragettes and women working in World War I, and then getting the vote afterwards. And I think this is our suffragette moment, to be honest. I use that because we should be able to explain how valued we are. And there's been a lot about making carers visible, and we have always been visible. We've just been ignored. And I think that's really important. And we've got to just make sure that people understand that we are valuable because we have helped save the healthcare service and the social care service from going under. We have helped save, by providing, £56 million worth of care a day, isn't it, over every day of the pandemic? It's colossal numbers. So if we can't show how valued we are to governments, when are we going to do it?
Well, and the answer is, gosh, I should have Googled this before. I think it's March the 21st, Census Day. There is a big opportunity to make sure that all carers are identifying themselves in their caring role on Census Day, because that makes a huge impact on funding for support and a number of different decisions that are made.
And we are running a 3-week campaign from next week to make sure that we try and identify as many carers as we possibly can. So you'll be sick to death of us thinking stuff about censuses, but you know, the more of us that can help identify carers that haven't been identified, you know, we all know, you know, somebody in our friendship group, somebody in our families that haven't identified, that needs to answer question 24.
Good knowledge.
Yeah, there you go.
Answer that one first.
24. Yeah.
So, Katy, that you've made a really compelling case there for why things need to be better for carers, and some of the key lessons that we've learned through COVID. The next challenge is to think about what the future could look like. So, can you paint a vision for us of what building back better for carers could look like? What are the practical steps? What could life look like in 10 years' time if we seize this opportunity and get it right?
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think actually we've done so little. It can't be difficult to be better, you know. And there's been pockets of really great work, and I won't say there haven't, but it hasn't been universal. So the thing that started me off was the National Carers Strategy. And if we had had a National Carers Strategy that had identified carers and then shown them how to find support, we would not be in the mess that we are over the last couple of weeks, you know, trying to get carers registered for vaccinations. And if we'd had a duty of care on the whole of the NHS to identify carers, then that would also have helped to, you know, when we wanted vaccination. So I think it's imperative that we have a carer strategy. It also tells you something, again, about value. I often say that there's a national strategy for pollinators, so for bees, and there's one for cybersecurity. But there isn't one for the 13.6 million unpaid carers. And I love bees. Please don't get me wrong. They're fantastic, you know, and I'm glad they've got a strategy. But when I don't have a strategy and a bee does, that tells you everything, doesn't it?
This is exactly what I meant at the beginning, Katy. You're making me laugh, but it's not a funny point.
No, I'm deadly serious.
Yeah, it really matters. And I know, so a really interesting question. So the health and care white paper that's going to turn into a health care bill later this year. Debbie mentions there,
it's
completely carer blind. So what would you want to be seeing in that bill, Katy, that would start to make a difference? So we need a strategy. What are the other steps that we can be taking?
I mean, we need social care fixing, don't we? And I know that's a massive, massive issue, isn't it? And I don't say that lightly. But the longer we leave it, the more unpaid carers we leave to be unsupported. And you know, there's no going back from that. So we've got to fix it. Somebody's got to be brave enough. Somebody's got to put their big boy pants on and get that done, haven't they? You know, that's the bottom line, I've got to say. And there's been some really good work on that by different APPGs, which are all party parliamentary groups for social care. But yeah, it doesn't involve carers at the moment. And what I would really love, and again, it goes back to the valuing, is for carers to be involved, co-produce, to be co-partners of some of these things that are coming along. It's no good just to say, oh, well, we consulted carers. You need them at every stage. And if we don't have carers, you know, sitting in these committees, it's never going to get any better. And if we don't have carers in Parliament, if we don't have, you know, a carer as an Prime Minister, for example, you know, it is never going to get any better. So,
Katy, hey, I think you're preaching to the choir in so many ways here, right? But I think one of the key things that so you're absolutely right about co-production, and I'm stepping out of my interviewer role here. But for me, there's something really important about data and evidence. And so realistically, we can't get 13.6 million people in the room to all share a pen to write the thing. But what we can do, in addition to those, having some carers help create that strategy and that document, is to capture the evidence. And so often an unpaid carer's experience, it happens behind closed doors. It's a private thing, and therefore we have astonishingly little data on what's going on. And I think that that's such an important thing that we need to address. And Mobilise Moments is that way of capturing, really quick and easy bits of data on a daily basis that hopefully we can feed into that process. So Katy, what comes next for the WeCare campaign? What are the priorities that you're going to be focusing on over the next couple of months?
Well, I can tell you that we've just been awarded our first grant. So that's really, really exciting, because you have to realize that, WeCare is just a small team, a core team of volunteers that are carers themselves or have carers in their families or caring roles. And so we've been doing this on an absolute shoestring, just through donations and what we scrape together. So every bit of online kit that we use is free, so our first grant means that we'll be able to reach more carers. So we did this sticking plaster craftivism kits that we sent out 100 of those to carers that wanted them. We didn't charge for those because I want every carer to feel that they can be part of our campaign, whatever their circumstances. So we'll be able to roll out some more of those at a later stage once we've made them and put them together and sorted them out. So that's to send to MPs to get them to engage around unpaid carers issues. And it really, really works. Yeah. It may sound like, a bit of stitching or craft doesn't sound very, how's that going to work? But, it goes together with a letter. And we've had a phenomenal response and people being, asking questions in Parliament, not just in England, but in Northern Ireland, and wearing our WeCare badges and all sorts of things. So it's fantastic. And then we've got some bigger pieces of work coming up. I'd really like to tackle something about carers allowance, because that's always a really big issue. It's not fit for purpose. How we sort out carers allowance, I am not entirely sure, but actually just getting people to understand what a poor deal it is. And then if you're on universal credit, how you have it taken away because it's earned income. I mean, that's not right. So again, that's about valuing. So we're going to be working on those things coming up. And obviously, we hang most of our work around Carers Week and Carers Rights Day, because we're a small team, and we try and be flexible and use the time wisely. And
well, Katy, we wish you all the best on that. On the issue of carers allowance, I learned something new the other day. I think it's if it's not the oldest, it's one of the oldest. The oldest benefits. Yeah. It has a very long hangover. Every other form of benefit has been reformed or overhauled in some way. And carers allowance is
73, I think it was the last time.
1973.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what kind of trousers people were wearing back then, and my imagination can't even get that far. Who knows?
It was seen as and forgive me again, but it was seen as pin money, which tells you something, doesn't it?
Very interesting. Well, Katy, I know that so many of our community are involved in the work that you're doing and are part of your community. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing your experience today. We really appreciate it, and we wish you all the best with your campaigns. And that's it from us this week. We're going to be back next week, every week, Thursday at 6 p.m. Do keep the comments coming through. So if you're watching on YouTube, those comments will still be live if you're watching on replay. Thanks for joining us. And do subscribe if you want to keep some updates for the next episode of Build Back Better for Carers. Katy, thank you again. And thanks to everybody for joining us.
Thank you.